tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's RBLR Sports.
What's up out there, everyone listening to RBLR Sports? This is James Knowles coming at you for the RBLR Rowdies show. I am here this week with my usual co-host, Carlos. And Carlos, I want to ask, like I do every week, how are you doing this Monday evening?
I'm doing great, James. I just got back from Adventure Island. It was a good time. I love Adventure Island. I love slides. I went with my little cousin, and it was kind of a mission to get him to go up some of those slides, but we did it, and it was a good time and whatnot. Obviously, Rowdies had a great result. We'll get into that. That made my weekend significantly nicer. Tough result for the Lightning. Definitely tough to see that game and see us go out, but you know, it makes it easier to get over a Stanley Cup loss when you have back-to-back cups. So it's all right. You know, we can give one to another team every once in a while, right? Anyway, James, how was your week?
Yeah, like you said, the Lightning part was pretty disappointing, but I did not stay up to watch the whole game, luckily, so I can't say that it was, the worst thing for me personally. I rode my bike to work today and used the excuse that my car, it's broken down. I did get the brakes replaced this weekend, but it didn't need to go unused. I just wanted to do that and test it out, and it actually wasn't so hot that I was dying on the way home. So that is going to be my positive for the day. And I've already got the positive from the Rowdies result this weekend, and we'll get away from my boring commute to the positive thing that we want to talk about here that I just mentioned. On Saturday night, the Rowdies won 5-2 away to Pittsburgh in a huge game. Carlos, I mean, getting a result away from home is one thing, but destroying a team like Pittsburgh in their home stadium,
man, that was something. That was something special for sure. I mean, it's one thing, like you said, to get a result away from home. It's one thing to score 5 goals away from home. But the biggest thing here that we're going to get into all of this in a second, but I just want to emphasize how great it is to finally get that like curse off of our shoulders, out of our heads, whatever. We just could not win games in Pittsburgh up until now. And it's great to finally have broken that curse in such a beautiful way. And we're going to get into all of that soon. But James, I mean, I can't express how awesome it was to see us just go off over there on the river in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, exactly. So that result means that Carlos gets 1 point. I get no points in our personal standings here. So well done to Carlos, and I will have to do a little bit better, obviously. We do have a home game coming up versus Memphis for us to get some predictions in on before this episode is out. So we will get to that later on. Before we move further, I do want to say, of course, please follow RBLR Sports. We are on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at RBLR Sports. And you can, of course, please like and subscribe to our podcast on all major podcast platforms. So let's move into it here. I'm going to do the quick review of the game, and then I will turn it over to you, Carlos, for the questions and analysis that we can break into there. The starting lineup is where we usually get this thing going, and CJ Cochran got us off in net. Aaron Guillen was actually a left back as opposed to a left center back like we usually see him play. Connor Antley and Jordan Scarlett were the 2 center backs, and Lawrence Weick was the right back. So that was an interesting little wrinkle to get us going. Jan Ekra and Lewis Hilton played in the midfield. In front of them were Sebastian Dalgard, Leo Fernandez, and Jake LaCava, and up top was Kyle Gregg. Like I said, an interesting lineup only because we did not play the way that the Rowdies really usually play, and that obviously worked to our advantage here. Pittsburgh did score first, but the Rowdies responded with an incredible 3 goals before halftime. In the second half, we did let one in, but that was after we had already scored another 2. So it was kind of moot at that point. Going away to our biggest rivals and scoring 5, like I said, that's amazing. I think that this is a pretty good habit that if we can pick it up and keep going from here, Louisville, you better watch out. That's all that I can say. I think it was also a really big boost to have Neil Collins back on the sideline this weekend.
It was. It definitely was. Seeing Neil on the sideline always just seems to lift the moods, and his emotions always so incredible to watch. And I distinctly remember there's one kind of play when we're kind of off the ball here, but Pittsburgh's kind of possessing in their own half, and I think it's Jake LaCava and Kyle Gregg start to both press a little bit, but only after Neil Collins is just frantically waving his arms and clapping aggressively, telling him to push up. So you can tell that the players definitely respond to his energy and his commands like rapidly, immediately. And that's something special that a lot of coaches struggle with. And that's just his style, and we can tell it's worked well. So like you said, great to have him back on the sideline this weekend. So jumping into the game here a little bit, I want to break down the first half especially. I want to take a look at what happened to the point where we just, broke the floodgates open early. We went down 1-0, and then all of a sudden, by the end of the first half, we're up 3-1. James, what happened? What did we see happen in that first half to the point that we just turned the game around on its head in an instant?
Yeah, so when the lineups came out for this game, I actually put it down in my notebook ahead of time as the usual, 3 at the back, 4 in the midfield, and 3 up top, with Leo Fernandez and Jake LaCava kind of having that free role to do wherever they want and go wherever they please. But it didn't really turn out that way. At times, it was a pretty, kind of normal 4-2-3-1. And Leo Fernandez had a very interesting role, I thought. Jake LaCava did try to, for the most part, hug the sideline on the right side, and Sebastian Dalgard did the same on the left side. And, they beat people every now and again to very, very good effect. And then Leo Fernandez was, he was doing his recent number 10 role, but he was mostly popping up to help Jake LaCava on the right side, I found. And then, obviously he would show up in different places, like when he almost scored a header off of a Lawrence White cross. But yeah, it was very interesting. It looked like Pittsburgh were also kind of mostly playing in a 4-4-2. Nathan Dos Santos was their left back. He is, I guess you would say, a rookie out of college from, this past off season for them in the college game. And he was, I think that he's been pretty good for Pittsburgh. He did not really show up today, I think, or this past weekend. I think that even more than that, Mikael Williams at the back for Pittsburgh had a very rough game, Carlos. It was very bad for him. But
Sure,
I think that Pittsburgh lining up in that 4-4-2, it didn't really, it did allow them to get some good chances. And, we can note that Pittsburgh did obviously score first, and then they scored last, but around them, they were completely unable to stop the way that we had Leo putting, pressure on when he had the ball at his feet. I don't even know how much, our pressing was part of our goals and our chances here. It was mostly, stuff that we created. So that's kind of good to see. That's stuff that we can hope to replicate,
Yeah, that first half, like you said, I mean, Pittsburgh definitely wasn't playing bad. There's nothing in the first half that would tell you that, we deserved really to be up by 2 goals like so quickly. I don't know. They were playing pretty well. And when they went up by that one quick early goal, I mean, I put in the Ralph's Mob Discord. I'm like, yeah, this is a typical Pittsburgh game. I mean, we're not playing bad, but Pittsburgh just finds a way to score, and now we're either going to have some drawn out 1-1 draw, or we're going to lose 1-0, right? Like I honestly, I wasn't very confident, but for some reason this season we've been really good at taking that first blow, going down 1-0, and being able to turn it around. That's not something you've been able to say every season, in these past 10 seasons in the modern Rowdies era. This is a team that really can bounce back, take a quick blow early on and turn it around pretty quickly. And obviously we scored 2 goals in 8 minutes after they took the 1-0 lead to totally turn the game on its head and really take the crowd out of it like pretty quickly.
Oh yeah.
The commentators were saying like throughout the whole game how as soon as the Rowdies scored that second goal, like the crowd was just not the same. They weren't into it. It was quiet. And that's a good Pittsburgh crowd. I mean, they're known for making a pretty good amount of noise. They had a pretty good crowd on hand based on what I saw. So taking them out of the game, and it's helpful. And we did that pretty quickly. And I mean, I really couldn't tell you what it is. I think it's just something in the team's character right now that doesn't let them get affected by going down to an early goal. And again, like that goal that we conceded, I wouldn't even say it was us playing poor defense, or there wasn't really a lapse in any judgment from the defenders or the midfielders. It was just, a really good strike from one of the Pittsburgh defenders. I forgot his name. I think it's Ordonez that
Yes. Yeah.
he pushed up the wing and just was in the right spot at the right time. He put himself in a good position to score, and he, put in a good shot. And frankly, like, that's just not a place that he usually is. You know what I mean? So I don't really blame the Rowdies or any of the midfielders or defenders for really not expecting him to be there, because it seemed like they had all their bases covered, and all of a sudden a defender comes out of nowhere and puts in a banger. So they did a really great job of just, putting that behind them and going on to score 3 great goals. That Kyle Gregg goal, that Kyle Gregg, chip over their goalie was just a thing of beauty, honestly. And it was just fantastic to see one of our strikers actually on the score sheet. One of our, our main strikers actually score a goal, right? Leo Fernandez got involved on that play too. I think he was the one that headed the ball along to put Kyle Gregg in on goal. And then the second goal was that was it Leo Fernandez goal?
It was the ball bouncing out of Pittsburgh defense, and they did not control it, so it ended up with Lewis Hilton, and he found Lawrence Wyke, who was going over to the right wing with it. Lawrence Wyke actually tried to find LaCava, but his pass was blocked. LaCava ended up getting on the end of that anyway, and looped it over the defender back to Lawrence Wyke. So it was a very roundabout give and go, I guess you could say. But that was the one, where the defender ultimately, LaCava found him again, and he put it over the top. Jan Ekra put it over the top, I should say, and there he found Leo Fernandez. I do have to mention the goalkeeper for Pittsburgh, though. Danny Vitiello did slip on that play. So, I mean, unfortunate for their goalkeeper, but hey, what are we going to say? That's too bad for them, and we got the goal.
Right.
It was
and
a
it was
very
still
good build-up from White to Ekra to set it all up.
Yes, it was still a great finish from Leo Fernandez too. I mean, even if that goalie didn't fall, I feel like Leo had a really good chance of putting that by him.
Yeah,
it was just a great little tap in, and I mean, Pittsburgh. They always have a great lineup. That goalie rotation has been something interesting for me to watch. I feel like the goalie they had on the bench, that was Jamali Waite. He played against us when Pittsburgh was at Al Lang. He is just a fantastic goalie, and he was called up to the Jamaican national team, actually with Jordan Scarlett. So it was really, really surprising for me to see him on the bench there. And, frankly, I think this is a situation where Bob Lilley is going to be like, okay, you know what? It's time to put Jamali back in. If your goalie's letting in 5 goals in a game, I mean, he didn't get much help from his defense, but the goalie didn't have all too great a day, right? So it was just surprising. I think, it worked to our benefit that Jamali wasn't playing against this Rowdy squad, and evidently the 5 goals shows not too much of a great performance from the goalie they started, whose name is slipping, but Kevin Silva, does that ring a bell? I think that's him.
Yeah, and I think that's I think as you said, there's going to be a problem with him moving forward, possibly staying in that lineup.
Right. So moving on from the first half, obviously talked about that turnaround. The Rowdies definitely looked comfortable coming out of the locker room, going into the second half. The result felt pretty locked in based on how we were playing and kind of how sluggish Pittsburgh started to look. But Pittsburgh did come out with some fire. They were creating some chances. Ultimately, they scored the final goal, but that wouldn't come before we scored 2 more goals. It was one from Lucky Mkosana off the bench, I think that was the second one. And I think the one before that was a La Cava goal. Am I mistaken?
No, you are correct with that.
So how did that come about? We're up by 2 goals already. How did we score 2 more goals when it seems like, just 1 week ago, we're struggling to put in more than a goal versus a pretty weak Charleston side? What happened there?
Yeah, I think this comes down to us finding the guys who are just firing on all cylinders here. That was something that the commentator Mike Watts said about the whole team. But I think as much as we can talk about the whole team, and you and I obviously have, and we will, as we continue to analyze this game, I still think that a lot of this comes down to the otherworldly play right now of Leo Fernandez and Jake LaCava. Let's just say you end the season, and actually forget that. Let's say that like MLS USL Championship has an all-star game, right? We have our all-star game, and we're playing the Canadian Premier League all-stars because that's probably one of the closer ones. So, they line up their guys, and I'm certain within the starting 11 for the USL Championship All-Stars, you will find either Jake LaCava or Leo Fernandez, if not both of them, the way that things are going right now. Right. I mean, I would like to talk about them specifically more later on here, but yeah, I think that those two have developed a very good chemistry, and they were able to, hold this team off and keep them at bay, really. I think that also, the Rowdies, obviously, the whole team played pretty well when it came to keeping them out. I think that, there were 2 chances in the first half, other than the goal where Pittsburgh or there was the goal, I should say, and then there was a second Pittsburgh chance where the left back, Dos Santos, he just played a simple pass into the midfield for I think it was Angelo Kelly, and then Jordan Scarlett and Lewis Hilton kind of tackled each other. It was a weird play, but other than that, there weren't too many other big chances. Now they did score; they had that chance, and then I think that there was another one in the second half that I'm forgetting, which is what we're talking about now. But really, what I want to point out here is that Pittsburgh did not have a lot of options to create in this game, and I think that Lewis Hilton does his usual good job of organizing the midfield. Jan Ekra does a very good job of facilitating the play, whether that's as a defensive player or as an attacking player, depending on who has the ball. And then I really liked the way that this back four was able to take what has been a pretty potent Pittsburgh attack and just block them from getting any chances here. The way that Cicerone was going down the left wing in the first half, that was to pretty good effect. But did you see that in the second half as much? I maybe I'm missing something and overlooking, but I don't know that I did see them creating all of those options, even that they were in the first half.
Yeah, no, I think it had a lot to do with kind of like what you talked about. I mean, our midfield, Lewis Hilton and Jan Ekra, kind of that heart of that, and then even Lawrence Weick, I mean, he's traditionally more of like a defensive mid. So he'll play like that a lot of the game. And he kind of moves into those positions naturally, just, based on his play style. And we did a really good job of meeting them in the midfield. We didn't really wait for them to get to our box, to give them space to create opportunities. We did a great job of just kind of meeting them in the trenches, right? I mean, there was no space for them to really, work their way up the wings, work in some crosses. There wasn't really any of that, honestly. And their second goal came off of just a series of crazy deflections and ultimately, somebody finding the ball at the top of the box by himself, right? So, I mean, that was the only time in the second half where they really got into our box off of a cross and whatnot. I mean, throughout the half, there really wasn't anything that I could point to say that, this is a chance that should have been a goal, or this is a chance that really could have been a goal. I mean, like I said, the midfield did such a fantastic job of, frustrating them. And I think that's what it comes down to ultimately. I mean, strikers always have that thing where, if they're not scoring, if they can't get the ball, if they're missing the net, it's going to mess them up psychologically, and they're going to be mentally out of it. They're not going to be able to score. They just won't be there. And the same thing with the midfield. I mean, if you're in the midfield and your job is to get the ball to the strikers, to your wingers, your forwards, if you can't do that over and over again, even though you're trying the same thing over and over again, and you keep finding this just angry Englishman in the midfield and Lewis Hilton, like it's not going to end well for you, and you're just going to be out of it, right? You can't do it. And we did just such a great job. It was fun to watch. I mean, it's not fun when it's your team, but it's fun to watch the other team get a little frustrated when you're sticking them in there a little bit and taking the ball away from them even before they create anything, right? So, yeah, I mean, it was good to watch, and I think that's the key thing. And I think you touched on it well, James, that midfield and meeting them in the trenches there. So I think that's that. And I think that's basically the main reason why they couldn't really get anything going in the second half. Like we said, there was that fire, like I said earlier. I mean, they wanted to win. They wanted to at least get a draw. Losing to the Rowdies here drops them down the table and kind of increases that gap pretty significantly. We'll get into the standings in a little bit, and we'll review that. But just a quick preview. I mean, they're in a battle just for the playoffs, right? So they're like earlier they were, kind of a lock for the playoffs, but in this little stretch of bad games, now they're, not even a playoff spot secure. They have a couple teams behind them with 2 games in hand, 1 game in hand. They're only 3 points ahead of them, or maybe they're even tied at this point, actually. I don't know. So this game was huge for them, and they really wanted to pick up a result. They were playing with fire, especially after, the bad results they've had. They're good at home. This is a good team at home, and they knew who they're playing at home, and they definitely know the kind of record they have against us at home. So I think they were feeling confident, especially after that early goal. But when they went down and then came out in the second half, they looked like a, 8th place, 9th place, 10th place side. And that's not usually what Pittsburgh looks like. So
No.
It's unfortunate. I know Bob Lilley will find a way to whip them into shape and maybe scratch out that last playoff spot. But yeah, I think we really did a good job of, making them look like that 8th, 9th, 10th place team. So great job to the midfield. Great job to Neil Collins for such a great setup in the midfield and lining it up well. So, and speaking of that, I know you touched on kind of a slightly different approach that this lineup had with at least FOTMOB identified it as a 4 in the back formation, right? We're talking about Lawrence White here, supposedly as a right back. In game it changes up a little bit, but with this kind of one-off switch up in the formation, right? What can we expect going forward? Is this something we can expect a little more regularly, do you think, James? Or is this maybe just a tactical matchup against Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I am hoping, in all honesty, that this was more than just something that we see against Pittsburgh. So we have usually obviously seen the Rowdies play with 3 at the back. Last season, that 3 was Aaron Guillen, Forrest Lasso, Jordan Scarlett, and that was an iron 3 in front of Evan Loro, something we've been chasing ever since. But I would say that, one thing that I've been looking at this team, and I've been I guess I haven't really said this out on the podcast because, you don't want to critique to the point where you're being negative. Obviously, our job here is to tell what we think when we're, describing what we see, what could have possibly gone better, all that stuff. But definitely one thing that I have said, when we are down, I would always like to see us move more players into the attack. So I guess this is a kind of a philosophical question, but when you've got 3 at the back and you have 2 wing backs, are there more defenders on the field than when you have 4 at the back and 2 of those are fullbacks? That's kind of the question, I guess.
Right.
When you have mostly this year, let's just use the 3 of Aaron Guillen and Connor Antley and Jordan Scarlett. Let's just say that those are the usual 3 at the back for an example. Are those 3 defenders, or do you have 1 defender and 2 fullbacks? Where, as opposed to this game, did we have 2 defenders and 2 fullbacks? It's kind of weird to look at it that way. What I
Sure.
have mostly been saying in my mind's eye is that having 3 at the back is having 3 defenders, and then you have 2 fullbacks, and those would be, in this case, Dalgard and Wyke. or excuse me, yeah, it was Wyke on the right side, but it would have been Dalgard who would have been the left wing back if we had lined up in our usual formation. So, yeah, does that mean that in this case fewer fewer attackers, or we had fewer in the other game, or in the other games? It's hard to say, but I do like seeing the four at the back, and I definitely would like to see a lot more players who are more dedicated to attack. Everybody on a Rowdies team, obviously Neil Collins was a center back, and everybody, they are going to be very well versed in the pressing game. Pittsburgh did play through our press for the first goal that they scored, and that's whatever. But pressing is a full team thing to do, and everyone's going to have to be involved in it and execute it with all the confidence that they have from having played it for so long. But I think that it does allow us to switch things up when we can go with two at the back from the start. I think that most frequently when we have seen two actual center backs in a game is when we are down a goal and it's getting late in the game and we need to push players up. So we go with two center backs and then there are two fullbacks and moving forward. So that leads me to believe that we had more attackers in this game than we did in previous games when we had three at the back and we switched it up because we were down a goal. In this game, we were never down a goal for very long, but we still had this lineup that shook out a very good result in the end. And I'm hoping that as much as it worked really well against Pittsburgh and, whoever plays us next, which we're going to get to in a bit, can look at it and they can, sure, they can figure out some things about how they could defend it maybe a little better. But we definitely need to have things like this in our arsenal. And we can even line up like we're going to play a certain formation for the first 10 minutes and then switch it up and go with the next one. I don't know. I just really like that all of these players proved that they were capable of doing very well in this role. Lawrence Wyke and Aaron Guillen as the actual fullbacks, who hugged the touchline and they didn't really come inside like they would if they were in a back three. That was very interesting. Sebastian Dalgard playing as pretty much an out-and-out winger and getting to the end line and cutting the ball back. I liked that a lot. That is a position that he played throughout his career before he got to the Rowdies. I know that he has said that in previous interviews, so I like that too. Leo Fernandez, you got to get him wherever the hell he's gonna get the ball the most. That's what I got to say about Leo Fernandez. I think it was great.
Yeah, that formation is definitely interesting to keep an eye on for the rest of the season. And that's a really good question and about this kind of three in the back versus, 5-ish in the back formation. It's really interesting to think about. When you were talking about that, I was trying to think about the games in the past, and these past couple of games. I'm trying to think about, how often our guys on the wing are pushing up, and do they count as attackers if they're just kind of pushing up to the, halfway line, like right. So this is something definitely to look back on, and you've inspired me here to do a little bit of research from these past couple of games and see where it seems like we're getting more players over the half line, and because Guillen and I want to say Scarlett are pretty often like involved in the attack in one way or another. Like they're always at least at the halfway line, kind of rotating the ball around a little bit, but definitely not in the way that Wyke usually is, or even Van Kazel on his limited minutes with the Rowdies. So definitely something to keep an eye on going forward. And one more thing I want to mention on the lineup here really quickly before we move on to another question. Again, I'm not going to complain because we scored 5 goals, right? And I'm also not going to complain because Lucky Mkosana came off the bench and scored, a really nice goal. It's pretty, individual effort in taking the ball and slotting it into the left post. But again, it is really interesting that Sebastian Guenzati continues obviously to start on the bench. I mean, this has been a recurring theme at this point. But the waiting to bring him on until like the last 20 minutes has been a continued thing. And again, I'm not complaining because, we scored 5 goals, right? So in Pittsburgh, and we won in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
But it is it continues to be very strange to me that he's, still in that role as a last 20 minutes player. And Emko Sana is coming on before him, right? I mean, that's never been a thing. Emko Sana has always been the one to come in the last 15 minutes, give it his all and score a goal every once in a while. So I'm very curious about I don't know, I guess the philosophy there and why that is. Because it's not just like a one-time thing. Like, this has been a thing for the past like month, right? Maybe a little more at this point. So definitely something to keep an eye on going forward, and maybe ask the coaching staff, what the thought process there is at some point. So definitely something that's just been on my mind here, because I know the commentators brought it up and they were saying, Sebastian Dalgard only 1 goal in 17 games, but I mean, obviously he's not had a ton of minutes either, right? So something to keep an eye on going forward, especially as he's kind of just been sitting on that record, right? I mean, that was such a big headline for a little bit, right before the Phoenix game. And that just kind of disappeared because like he hasn't really featured in the lineup in the same way since. So something to keep an eye on, like I said, and we'll be thinking about the lineups and keeping an eye on how they form up against our upcoming opponent, who we will touch on in just a little bit. Now, really quickly, to wrap things up here in our analysis, Leo Fernandez and Jake LaCava, James. I mean, what's going on here? They both have 7 goals each. Neither of them are really traditional strikers or forwards. It's not necessarily like their main job. These are guys that have always played kind of on the wings, as wingers, as kind of like attacking midfield. Like, what's going on here, and why are they both tied for our leading goal scoring position? What's going on with them?
Yeah, I mean, last season, I guess Sebastian Guenzati was the guy to catch fire, and this year it's 2 people. It's Leo Fernandez and it's Jake LaCava. Like you said, unfortunately, to Sebastian Guenzati's playing time's downfall. But as a team, what can you say except that these are the guys. These are the guys across nearly the whole league who are doing. There are players who have scored more than them. There are players who have created more than them. Sure, but when it comes to consistency in a big team in this league, Jake LaCava and Leo Fernandez are it. They have been. Leo Fernandez started the season injured, and he came in a couple games. I think the 3rd game might have been his first one. I would have to go back and check. But he was pretty much from the get-go one of the best players out there. And he started out as a left wing back. Jake Araman came into that role. And since then, actually, I got to be honest, I think that, it's just been the case that Leo Fernandez has been doing so well up top that they couldn't even think about putting him back as the left wing back unless there was an injury or something. Jake Araman is currently, he wasn't on the bench for this game or the past game. And Sebastian Dalgard started as the left wing back in the previous game. Then he started as the left winger in this game against Pittsburgh. And they said, well, we're not moving Leo Fernandez back. Let's just put Aaron Guillen at left back, I guess. But his ability to create has always been there. I think they just kind of needed to free him up to do this. He had a stint in MLS earlier in his career, and I'm pretty sure he mostly played as an attacker there at the Philadelphia Union. But, we have also seen this in bits and pieces here. I think that another thing that we have to consider about past instances of the Rowdies when we look back at last season, Sebastian Guenzati was playing as kind of the left winger, then Steven Dos Santos was in the middle. And eventually they worked it out last year that Jan Ekra was the guy who was kind of the third, in a 3-4-3 up top, but he had a much more defensive position within that up top role where he was applying pressure most frequently when we were out of possession and then facilitating, obviously, when we were with it, as opposed to being the man to score or the hold up guy, anything like that. So maybe Leo Fernandez's path into this role was blocked for longer than we knew. And then Jake LaCava, I said this last year or over the offseason when we signed him about his play last year. when I had watched the Red Bulls in preparation for us playing them, I saw Jake LaCava go on these runs over and over. And I saw him, he always wants to dribble. And I think everybody who watches him now knows that. But I saw him most frequently, get stuffed in a tackle. And I don't think that was necessarily down to him so much as it was down to him being on kind of a poor team within the USL Championship, because obviously when we played them last year, I made a point of saying, and I'm sure there will be one or two people out there who remember this, that I made a point of saying, this Jake LaCava guy, he's whatever. He's just going to dribble at you. Let him do it, and then he'll lose the ball. And I think in both of the games that we played New York Red Bulls too, he had several runs where he dribbled at us and he beat like 4 guys in a row.
Right.
And he would, he either had a goal or an assist in one of those games. And then I came back on the next week and I was like, oh, well, I was wrong about that. Sorry, folks. But he has just, taken that, and he has proven again that he is just a top level player at this level, at this league. And he is probably going to be, headed to MLS. I doubt at this point that it's going to be this season, because New York Red Bulls play a very certain style. And while Jake LaCava is playing, similarly enough that he could fit into that style, I would point out that New York Red Bulls are currently second in the East. So unless they have some injury problems, it's unlikely that they will feel the need to call Jake LaCava, but it is entirely possible that they do, just because he would probably fit into their system so well, with him being such a vertical player and so good at pressing the other team when we don't have possession. So I will eat the crow for calling out Jake LaCava as a bad player last year, and I will eat my crow happily now that he is playing for us and doing so well at the stuff that I apparently did not see in him when I tried to scout him out ahead of time.
Man, just let him keep him, Red Bulls. Like, let us keep that man. Like, well, you don't need him. We can keep him for a while, right? I mean, what's going on? Like, I don't know how loans work too well. I mean, I'm sure we can shell out some money, and I don't know. Let's make it happen, right? Jake LaCava, Tampa Bay Rowdies legend. Why not, right? I mean, he's already having such a great season. Let's keep him a longer. And then, I mean, as for Leo Fernandez, I mean, what more can be said about him at this point? I mean, what a goal. That second goal? Yeah, that second goal he had was just,
it was the second one. Just a crazy goal.
Yeah.
That I was kind of hoping that was going to be a Sports Center top 10 one, but man, that was amazing.
Yeah, it definitely could have been, probably should have been, and should be up there for goal of the week. I know one of the commentators was like, he said a comment towards the end of the game where he was like, and Ordonez hasn't had a great game. Definitely upset that his, goal of the game has been overshadowed by the result here. And I'm just thinking to myself, goal, like, what are you talking about? Like, did he miss the Leo Fernandez goal? I don't know what he was seeing. That goal was something special. And again, it's been really great to see him kind of find this new role in the squad after, having been here for so long now. He and Guenzati have been staples of this team for going on 5 years almost, right? And it's crazy to see him, after having such a, pretty set in stone role on the wing for so long, kind of as a wing back almost, right? Having him develop into this new role, maybe finding where, he just works best, right? I mean, it's been really, really cool. And it's been a great development to see. And it's almost like we're watching a different player, because it's not the same type of play. It's not the same position. It feels like a different Leo Fernandez, and he's playing with so much confidence. I mean, every time I get to chat with him really quickly after the game, he's just smiling. He's always feeling pretty good. I mean, except for that game after Charleston. After the Charleston draw, he was a little upset, right? But who wasn't? He seems to just be playing with a new level of confidence every game. And, not to spoil anything, but with that, let's go into our man of the match, James, because I feel like it's pretty obvious who I'm going to say based on, the last minute and a half of ranting here. James, why don't you give us your man of the match first? And I have an idea of who it might be.
Well, if your idea is Santi Castaneda, then you might be right.
There we
No,
go.
no, no. I'm
No.
just kidding. I'm just kidding. I do want to give him a shout out here. But yeah, Santi Castaneda made his debut. And that's awesome for him. I love. I've said this before. I love seeing teams play their academy players. So congratulations to him. According to Neil Collins, he deserves it from everything he's done in training. Obviously, we didn't get to see much of him, but I don't doubt that Neil Collins is telling the truth there. The person that I do think is the actual man of the match, though, yeah, of course, it's Leo Fernandez. Who else is it going to be these past couple of weeks? Leo Fernandez, not only did he score 2 goals, he almost had a third goal from that chance that I mentioned earlier where Lawrence Wyke, he put it a little dinked chip over the defense, and Leo Fernandez got his head on it and he put it just wide. I thought he was going to score that, but beforehand he had put that little pass off of another dinked chip from Jan Ekra. He put that past Kevin Silva to score his first goal. The second goal, I mean, I don't know what else you can say about that. He pulled that out of the air like a cross field from our half, I think, possibly.
Yeah.
He pulled it down. He beat one player or 2 players?
2 defenders, yeah.
Yeah, 2 defenders, and then he put it far post. And he's playing with all the confidence in the world right now. And I guess, a lot of players tend to hit their prime 27, 28, 29, 30 years old. Maybe Sebastian Guenzati hit his last year, and this is Leo Fernandez's year. I could only be, I could only be so happy for Leo Fernandez with everything that's going on. He's just a man on fire.
You summed it up, James. I'm not even going to try and elaborate too much on that. It's Leo Fernandez, right? He's my man of the match. He's the guy. He's playing, like you said, just with all the confidence in the world. I do want to give a quick shout out to my honorary mention here in Lawrence Wyke. He had a fantastic game as well, both defensively in his role as this, fullback, sometimes center, defensive midfield hybrid. He created so much in the attack, though, and I think that's what made him stand out, like on the broadcast so easily. I mean, that goal that Leo Fernandez, a super goal, I think it was a long ball from Lawrence Wyke. The cross that almost gave Leo Fernandez his hat trick was just a beautiful ball from Lawrence Wyke. He got involved in another goal as well, and he might have been involved even another one after that, if I'm not mistaken. Those aren't the ones that show up in the score sheet, though. Those are the ones that are kind of like the key pass, the assist before the assist, right? And I mean, I don't know. It's worth mentioning because he won't get the recognition he deserves there, even though I feel like he definitely deserves it. So honorary mention to Lawrence Wyke. He had a great game defensively and offensively. So special shout out to him. So anyway, really quickly, I want to touch on the standings here. We can review that in a second. But before that, quick shameless plug. Quick plug for the RBLR Sports shop, right? So liking and subscribing, like we've said, is definitely free. So please do that on all of our platforms. You can take a listen to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. But if you do need some new threads, you can totally support the podcast by heading over to shop.rblrsports.com and checking out all the cool designs that we've cooked up. We is a strong word here. I did not do this. So shout out to Eureka for his work in the merch. And if you don't like it, then you can blame him too. So link in the description, promo code COYR for 10% off. Definitely come check it out. Lots of cool stuff on there. Makes great gifts. Lots of birthdays coming up, I'm sure. Take a look. Maybe find something nice for a birthday. James, why don't you run us through the standings here so we can check in on where everybody stands in the USL Championship?
Absolutely, absolutely. So the Eastern Conference looks pretty different right now. Memphis 901 is back on top. That was not the case last Monday, but it is again now. They have 35 points from 16 games played. Louisville City, meanwhile, have 33 points from 16 games played. And we are in third with 30 points from 17 games played. Detroit City behind us with 26 from 16, and Birmingham have 25 from 15 games. They can overtake us, obviously, with that amount. Pittsburgh have 24 and Indy 11 have 21. They round out the playoff spots, while the Miami FC also have 21 points, but they are below Indy 11 on the tiebreaker. In the West, San Antonio now lead with 34 points from 15 games. Colorado Springs have 33 points from 14 games after I believe it was an own goal that put San Antonio ahead of Colorado Springs this past weekend. So interesting stuff out there, even if a 1-0 game might be the most drab win you could find. In the West, after them are San Diego, Sacramento, and El Paso, all in playoff spots. It should be noted Phoenix Rising still sit third to last, while New Mexico and Las Vegas round out those playoff spots out there. So yeah, lots of intrigue out in the West, and obviously lots of weird stuff going on over here in the East. I mean, it's a good league to follow. There's all sorts of weird stuff, and there are all sorts of intriguing teams coming up here. We have an intriguing team coming up this weekend. In fact, Carlos, I believe that we might be playing one of the only 2 teams higher than us in the East.
Yep, intriguing is definitely a word for Memphis 901. They are playing great soccer right now. They are in first place in the Eastern Conference. Like you said, they have 35 points. Only 3 losses on the season, actually matched up and tied with us with those amounts of losses. 11 wins, though, and I think that's the biggest impressive thing. 11 wins in 16 games is no small feat, and it's obviously the reason why they are topping the conference right now. So we play them this Saturday at 7:30 at glorious Al Lang Stadium. It'll be our 4th of July celebration, so plenty of fireworks after the game. Come check it out. It'll be a great time. I would definitely say that Memphis are kind of the surprise package is a good phrase for it of the East right now. I mean, I think James was saying that Memphis was the team to watch, a potential dark horse, but I don't think anybody would have seen them top of the conference right now. They're playing great soccer.
I certainly did not.
Right. In their last 5 games, they've won 3 times. They've lost 1 an away game to the Birmingham Legion and 1 away draw to Hartford. A not too strong Hartford squad, but, every team at the top of the conference has an occasional slow game. Ahead of this year, we did, RBLR, some preseason predictions. James, like I said, definitely picked them as a dark horse, but I mean, it's just incredible to see what they're doing right now. They're a fun team to watch. I'll give them that. I will say that they're not as fun to watch when they're playing at home on that, literal baseball field. You see the clay, kicking up whenever they run through and the baseball base paths and whatever. It's definitely weird, but they know how to win at home, and they definitely know how to win away too. But they're not unbeatable. We know that we're up against it with them. We had a matchup against them earlier this season at their baseball field, and it was a tough 3-1 loss. It was, though, during our kind of bad run of games in April, series of just a bunch of games in a short period of time. So we know they're good. We've played them before. We want to try and avoid the little 2-game sweep against them here. They play mostly in a 4-2-3-1 or 4-4-2 variation. They have plenty of talent and some important players to highlight, just a couple here. In their back line, they have, I want to say it's pronounced Muse. I might be wrong. Buckmaster, Smith, Laug, Segrist. Malloy has been a revelation in the midfield with Kisadu. Derek Dodson, shout out to him. He's a Georgetown alum. He always plays well against the Rowdies. And Goodrum up top has been just a really, really potent forward for them. He has 9 goals. None of them are penalties. And Kisadu and Malloy each have 5 and 4 goals, respectively. Lots of good chances for them. They create plenty of chances throughout the game, and they don't need a lot of space to do that. Really good counterattacking team based on their game versus Detroit. They can create chances really quickly and seemingly out of nothing. With all that being said, I feel like I made them sound like, 2014 Germany in the World Cup. Like, it's still possible to beat them. I mean, we played them before and we lost and whatnot, but I feel pretty good about this game. James, what is your prediction for this game, and what do you think we need to do to beat this talented squad?
Yeah, like you said, they are a good team. They're not absolutely invincible, though. We should definitely have that in our heads. They don't do anywhere near as well away from home as they do at home, which is something that I guess is kind of the reverse for us the last couple of games. But hey, let's hope that this is the one that we can turn that around and pick up that home record again. Yeah, they definitely probably need to work on shutting down Buckmaster and Segrist as the wingbacks, but even more importantly, the wingers up in front of them, Kisidou and Dodson, they're doing very well. Kisidou is a former Atlanta United 2 player, and he didn't actually have the best time there. It might have been the case, similar to some other players like maybe Jake LaCava, who was playing on an MLS 2 team, and then when he was allowed to go to an actual team that was going to go and try and win trophies, he picked it up and he showed what he could do. But yeah, I think that one of the more important players too that we need to watch, as you said, Aaron Malloy. If we were going to do that USL Championship All Stars team against the CPL All Stars, like I had talked about earlier today, then I think Aaron Malloy would have just as much of a case to be in there. He's been incredible. He was in the USL League One last year, and he did so well that he moved to Memphis, and he's been carrying them. He will show up all over the field, and more so than shutting him down as if he's like, kind of an Andrea Pirlo type player who sits back and, orchestrates the attack with his long balls and his incisive passing. I think that Aaron Malloy is more of, he's a connector with his passes, and then he will show up late in the box and, he will set up an assist, or he might even get a late goal. That's kind of something that I see from him. If we can stop him from being able to do that, and, we just got to keep a good eye on him, obviously, like we do every player. That's hardly insightful commentary there, but he is someone we'll need to watch out for. And yeah, Philip Goodrum, in his goals, no penalties were scored, and that means that all 9 of them have been open play. So he's another one that you have to shut him down, and shutting him down is not, again, that's just not the most helpful. But these are guys that you kind of have to, you can't just do any one thing and then that takes them out of the game. If you just put somebody big on their back or something, it's not like they won't be able to find other ways to get themselves involved and make a nuisance of themselves. So if we can do all of that, I hope that it's possible. It's easier said than done, of course, but I'm predicting for this game that the Rowdies do win. And I am predicting for this game that we do give up a goal. So what I'm going to say here is 2-1 win in the end.
That's a solid prediction, and I'm not going to lie, that's where I was leaning to. But for the sake of switching it up, I'm going to take a 3-1 win. And I think we're going to keep up this hot streak of goals here. Hopefully our strikers get on the score sheet again. And then, it wouldn't be a surprise at this point if both Fernandez and LaCava get on the score sheet too. So I can see us taking a 3-1 win, or kind of like that game at home against Pittsburgh. Maybe it's 2-1, a dogfight back and forth between 2 top teams, and a Lucky Mkosana goal in the last 10 minutes to kind of put the nail in the coffin. Like you said, Memphis is a really good team. They're beatable, and I've said this on the episode before. I'm pretty confident about our odds against this Memphis team, because it's a good team, but especially playing at home, I mean, I like our chances, and I think we match up really, really well against them. Fun fact, when I was working at the ticket office, or it's a job I still have up in Georgetown, Derek Dodson came back for a game that I was working at, and that was, I believe, like 2 weeks after he scored the game-winning goal against us playing for Hartford. And I was like, man, like, why you got to do this to us? I was telling him, like, you scored against my team. Like, I liked you, but like, you're messing us up here. Next time we played them, he went on to score. Or next time we played him, he went on to score a goal, and that was when he was playing for Memphis earlier this season. So for some reason or another, Derek Dodson likes to play really well against us. I noted this on Twitter. In 3 games against the Rowdies, he has 2 goals and 1 assist. So, I mean, if there's a guy to get on the score sheet for them against us, I feel like it's going to be Derek Dodson. It's just been a trend at this point. He's just so talented on the wings. And I'm not saying this like, my Georgetown soccer bias is coming out here a little bit, but I mean, he's just such a talented player and he's so fun to watch. So I really do wish him the best of luck in every other game, just not against us. Like, come on. Like he scored too many against us already.
I will say really quickly, Carlos, regarding your Georgetown soccer bias. I'm one of the few sickos out there who does watch college soccer, and
it's a great time.
I don't think that you have Georgetown bias just because you go there. I think that Georgetown soccer has a bias because they pick good soccer players.
That's true.
They have a good team and they have a good record for a reason.
Yeah. So anyway, Derek Dodson, if by any chance you hear this, you probably won't. It'd be kind of random. Maybe he's doing some scouting ahead of time. Please don't score against us. Like, you've already done enough damage in the past, but again, wish him all the best, just not against us. So I'm taking a 3-1 win. And if they do score, I hope it's Derek Dodson, though, because it'd be kind of fun. Anyway, that'll be my pick for this game. I feel great about our odds, James. Like I said, I was making them sound like the 2014 World Cup squad in the German World Cup team. They're good, but they're very beatable. And
yes,
they've shown some weaknesses in their games and some flaws that I think Neil Collins will be able to exploit. Again, this is another game where we have a whole week of preparation. We have a lot of time between games. And I think it's been serving us well. I don't think it's a coincidence that this kind of unbeaten streak has come when we've started to have more time in between games, when we started to have this time to prepare, time to scout, time to review tape, get some rest in between games. Obviously, that helps. So I don't think it's a coincidence that we've been playing better after that stretch of just insanity in April, right? I'm excited for that. So make sure to come out to that game. It'll be our July 4th celebration, like I said. It'll be a good time. Plenty of fireworks after the game. Plenty of fireworks on the field during the game, right? 2 top teams in the East. So make sure to come out and support the boys at Al Lang Stadium. James, do you want to wrap us up here? Anything else to say?
I will go through our one more thing segment really quickly. So this will be my last episode for a few weeks before a family trip to Germany. I'll be going there and taking pictures with my Rowdy stuff near all the local stadiums that I can find. I have a little bit of an itinerary for that. So
nice.
You can keep an eye out on my Twitter for it, or hopefully I will be able to get it all posted together at the end. We'll have to see what the Wi-Fi situation is there, obviously, but that is my goal. Get the Rowdies in front of the Allianz Arena in Munich. That would be pretty cool. Nice. But anyway, I'll have to turn the keys over to you and Eureka for a couple of weeks, and I'm sure that you will have some good games to watch and commentate on afterwards, including this weekend where, like you said, the Rowdies will play Memphis. But if you can make it there, please do so, not only because I can't be there and somebody's got to take my place, but the Rowdies will be having fireworks after the game. I believe, obviously, this will be related to the July 4th holiday, which is on Monday. And I think that, it'll be really fun to go out there and hopefully celebrate a good win with those fireworks. Yeah. The last thing that I wanted to note for all of our listeners, the Concacaf W Championship starts the day we record next week. That is Monday, of course. Make sure you tune in and support the U.S. women's national team in their quest to qualify for both the Olympics and the World Cup, which is coming up next year in 2023 and set to take place in Australia and New Zealand. Obviously, I think that Australia and New Zealand being the host is going to be that's awesome. I think that those are 2 really cool countries that have never hosted a World Cup before. They probably have a pretty good, infrastructure and setup to do that. And I think that the women have a very good chance to qualify for both of these tournaments. We aren't quite the same team that won the World Cups in the past, but we are still a very good team. And I think that if we qualify again, we can just go there and hopefully show them that, we are close enough to the teams that won those 2 World Cups in a row that maybe we just sneak in a third as well after not doing so at the past Olympics. But tune in for that and support the girls. Obviously, if you have other teams, taking other teams to support. The Mexican national team will be there, the Jamaican national team, the Canadian national team, who did win the Olympics in the women's side. So yeah, it's going to be really fun. I'm going to try and catch some from Europe, just like I'm going to try and catch the Rowdies games. I do not know what the schedule is going to look like for that, but we're going to try our best while we're over there as a family.
No. So many people took those like crazy good U.S. women's national team World Cup squads for granted. They were so fun to watch, and
yeah,
there's definitely a lot of talent coming up the ranks here. So it's going to be a good team for sure. Definitely going to be entertaining games. Good tune-up games ahead of the World Cup too, for sure. Again, I mean, not to take the World Cup qualification for granted or anything, but it's definitely going to be a good-looking squad, and I hope they can produce some good results too. A couple more things here I want to add real quick. First of all, James, like that All-Star game idea versus the Canadian Premier League All-Stars would be so fun. Like, why hasn't anybody thought about that? Like, why don't we have an All-Star game? Anyway, first thing out of the way. Second thing out of the way, we better win on Saturday, because fireworks, post-game celebrations after the game, if we lose or if we tie, it's so awkward. Like, it's just not the same. Like, you're celebrating and everybody's like, wait, like we just lost or we just tied in a bad way, right? I mean, I remember I was up in Charleston for an away game a couple years ago, and we lost 2-0 to the Battery. Then they had fireworks after the game, and it wasn't the same. Let me tell you, fireworks after a game that you lose, so lame. Fireworks after a game that you win is way cooler. So I hope that's way more incentive to go out and play their hearts out and come out with a win against a top Memphis squad. So James, why don't you wrap us out here, and we can call it an episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Obviously, we appreciate when you do that. Please follow us as well on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We are at RBLR Sports, and you can follow me if you'd like. I am at RBLR James K. Carlos, where can they get at you?
Definitely come drop a follow on Twitter at Carlos CPA10. As you can imagine, based on the fact that I'm doing an RBLR Rowdies podcast, I tweet a lot about the Rowdies, and that's a lot of what you'll see on my Twitter. So makes sense. I was tweeting a lot about the Lightning too. That'll be done for a while. I'll probably be tweeting more about baseball, even though I know nothing about it. I just love the Rays, right? I mean, the Rays are a really fun team to watch. Shout out to them for pulling together some wins, even through all the injuries they've had. Isaac Paredes has been such a great revelation for them. I can't remember the last time we had like a really strong and impactful like Mexican player on this Rays squad. So it's really cool to see some like Latin American, or I guess like Central American representation on that team. It's obviously baseball is huge in Cuba and Puerto Rico. We've always had a lot of Dominicans on the team. Really interesting to see a Mexican star player show out. So good for him, good for the Rays. I'll be tweeting a lot about that. Long story short, come drop a follow at Carlos TPA10.
And if you have any questions for us, you can use the hashtag AskRBLR. By the way, if you have any questions, that goes for not just the Rowdies, but also if you have any questions for the Rays, or if you have any questions for the Lightning, the Bucks, the Bandits as well. Their season is, still going. So we got all sorts of stuff to talk about here. But please get back to us on the social media there, and like and subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, Apple and Google Podcasts, YouTube, and all other major podcast platforms. For my last time in the month of June 2022, come on, you Rowdies.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.